If you're afraid of success, go ahead and tune out because this segment is not for you. Every year, Higher Ed talks about change, but Insights EDU 2026, that's not another conference. It's the catalyst. It's where fresh data drops, revealing real insights on how modern learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. And here's a spoiler for higher ed leaders. Most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach, February 17th to the 19th, 2026, in Fort Lauderdale. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, 40 sessions, zero fluff. We're talking unfiltered strategy, AI integrations, and forward thinking built for the leaders who want to disrupt before they're disrupted. So here's the question. Are you ready to lead transformation or be overtaken by it? Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. EdUp Experience has brought you powerful conversations with more than 400 college presidents and higher ed leaders, over 1,000 episodes and counting. Now, we're inviting you to join us in shaping the future of higher ed podcasting. For just $5.99 a month, you lock in that rate for life, but only if you sign up before December 31st, 2025. As a supporter, you'll get ad-free early access to episodes. Prices go up after December 31st, but your rate never will. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and join our community today.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode of EdUp. And, you know, I as I often do, and I kind of stopped for a while because Elvin told me I was being too annoying with it. But I do want to remind everyone that anytime you have something that you want to write, an article, you want to tell us about some new programs launching at your institution, you want to tell us about some innovation that's going on, you can write up an article and you could submit that to EdUp Editorials, where we are now publishing articles that our colleagues across higher education write, so that you have another outlet to get some good news out there about what's happening in our industry. And you can submit those to EdUp Experience at gmail.com. And that goes for you, a listener, or anybody that works in an institution in and around higher education, etc. So that's EdUp Editorials, EdUp Experience at gmail.com if you want to write us an article. All right, let's get to our guest today. He's been on once before, but requested that I do not interview him. I don't know what happened that first time. He said, I don't want to interview with Joe. No, he didn't do that. I missed him. It was probably my fault, as it often is, that my scheduling is in disarray when I'm doing live podcasting. Sometimes guests have sessions, or they're running to a session, or I have a guest in front of me that comes in, and then the timing gets all screwed up. His timing got screwed up. I didn't get to interview him. It was a major disappointment, and we've been trying to get him back ever since. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's Dr. Randall Van Wagner. He is the president at Mohawk Valley Community College. Randy, welcome back to an EdUp. Mike, how are you?
Hey, Joe. Doing great. Thanks so much for having me here. Looking forward to the conversation.
I'm glad you're back, and this time for a full episode. Often when we do these in person, we get 15 minutes or so. The longer format gives us an opportunity to really have you open it up. So for any listener that doesn't know about Mohawk Valley Community College, MVCC for short, who do you serve? Well, first of all, where are you? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Sure. Mohawk Valley Community College was founded in 1946 as one of the first 5 technical institutes in New York to serve returning veterans after World War II. And we're located in Utica and Rome. We have a campus in each city in our county. Oneida County, here right between Albany and Syracuse, along the I-90 corridor and the Erie Canal in the foothills of the beautiful Adirondacks.
Tell us a little bit about your students in the area.
Yeah. So the county's 234,000 people. We serve a student population, about 9,000 individual credit students through an annual year, 9,000 non-credit students, big in workforce development, non-credit, and 62% Pell eligible, 55% part-time. Really seeing that shift post-pandemic. We used to be 55% full-time. Post-pandemic now we're 55% part-time. But that 62% Pell eligible is it's the second poorest student population in New York, in the SUNY system, I should say. And part of that is reflective of the economy, and heavy, I believe we have one of the top 5 highest concentrations of refugee population and newcomers, large Hispanic population as well, in the city of Utica, a really large refugee resettlement organization. It's been resettling refugees for over 40 years, up until more recently, when refugee resettlement is no longer a thing in this country. But 1/3 of the households in the city of Utica speak a language other than English as their primary language, for example.
Yeah, I didn't mention this to you beforehand, but I grew up in Syracuse. I am born and raised in Syracuse, New York, and many, many, many times at the age of 18 or over, I had visited the Utica area for, there's a casino out there, and so we'd make the trip out there, so I spent a lot of time there. And there are many rural areas that you serve. It's sort of a city, and then it's not a big city, but there's a city, and then it moves to almost more rural type land.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Very, very quickly. Can you talk about that mix? Because they're different kind of students.
Yeah, it's interesting. Agriculture is still the largest industry in our county, but yet we have a really wonderful, diverse. We have the Air Force Research Lab Information Directorate on the former Griffiths Air Force Base that is now a thriving business and technology park, where Chobani just announced last summer the largest food production facility in the country, a $1.2 billion, indeed, a $1.2 billion production facility that is getting underway. Over 1,000 jobs, $21 an hour is the lowest paid position. We have Indium, that a metals material science company that basically puts you can't have any flat screen display in production, cannot be made without materials from Indium. And they're a multinational, headquartered, started here almost 100 years ago, here in this community. So wonderfully diverse. But then I always tell people, I'm in my 19th year as president, and one of the things I love about it is Utica has all the issues of a big city, but it's at a scale that you can feel like you can do something about it in the community where you live, work, and play.
And you can have direct impact on your economy. I mean, that's the other part. Sometimes it's harder to track. You're in a big city. You have economic impact. You try to study it, whatever. But in the Utica area, Rome, Utica, you can see it. You're seeing these students. It's small enough where you're going to come into contact with them, and large enough to where there's going to be really an economic engine. Can you talk about MVCC's contribution to the economy in the area?
Yeah. For example, during the pandemic, we had at the time it was how did they say it? The largest, first, largest, and only.
I like that.
Silicon carbide chip fab in the world, and it was Wolfspeed located their new fab, silicon carbide, highly automated chip fab right here in Utica, in Marcy, 5 miles north of downtown. And MVCC, we were front and center on helping them hit all their employment marks. So even though it was in the pandemic, they stayed ahead of pace on the construction as well as the hiring. And a lot of that came into play with short-term training that we help provide, and staying very close with them on customized training to help them open on time at a time when Indium, as I mentioned before, Indium was expanding greatly. And you're thinking, in this little city of 60,000, county of 234, how can we support such industrial growth? And it is central to MVCC's workforce training programs.
Funny enough, when people hear this episode, it will be in a few weeks after this point, but I will be in Saratoga Springs at the SUNY Sika Center doing the keynote for the Sika Center, and then I'll be on the campus of SUNY Oneonta, my alma mater, doing a little AI boot camp for faculty and staff. And there's nothing like coming out to that area of New York, the greater sort of upstate New York area, especially in fall. But in years past, as you know, there have been challenges about businesses moving to and staying in the region. There's a thing called snow that I grew up with in Syracuse, and I know that area experience as well, where there were many years, especially 20 years or so years ago, where the snow there was a lot of it. There's a little less now. Are you seeing more businesses commit to the upstate New York area? And if so, why?
You know, when Wolfspeed came, their headquarters is in North Carolina, and as I recall, in the final throes of their decision-making, a hurricane came up the coast, and our economic development leaders hit on a little tagline that I love to share. We receive 100 inches of snow on average in the Utica area. Yeah. And at the time, when trying to recruit companies, we're like, we shovel our hurricanes, you know? You just have to deal with it. And frankly, if you have a four-season activity, just a winter activity, whether it be, you know, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, downhill skiing, ice fishing, snowmobiling, whatever it is, it's an absolute playground. And I grew up in Michigan. My wife and I both grew up in Michigan, and we have those activities in the winter. And we lived 5 years in Denver and 8 in Omaha, 300 days of sunshine. That's great, but 13 years of drought and a whole lot of people. I'll take four full seasons, a few more days of clouds, and plenty of water, and just the right amount of people makes for a pretty good quality of life.
Yeah, well, 19 years as a college president, your 19th year as a college president, that's a long time. You know, excuse me, it's interesting to me because I get to talk to so many presidents that the middle, like I talk to some that are 3 years in, 4 years in, I'll say even 5 years in, starts to get a little bit more rare. I talk to some that are over 15, 18, 20, 24, but that middle part is really sticky. It's, and I don't mean sticky as in people are staying in the role. I mean that there are less college presidents in that middle, which I don't know what that means, but 19 years is a really long time. So you made it through, maybe it comes in phases or eras almost, where you have the era of this type of leadership. You've needed to change your leadership for this new era. I think COVID's a good example of how we can have an era coming into an era, coming out of an era, and so on. How have you stayed fresh over 19 years in terms of leadership? Because it gets very easy, say that complacency is the enemy of urgency. It's easy to get comfortable. How do you keep moving the engine forward and looking at things differently when you've been looking at it for so long?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of it goes to the culture here at MVCC, in that the average average tenure is less than 5 years of a community college president across the country. And I'm the 5th president in 79 years. Like just above average at this place, And thinking about, I think about this a lot, that there's an organizational change aspect to it. There's a rhythm. My own kind of working theory that I have is, for culture change, you first, everybody surfaces the culture. They go on their listening tour. Then they touch the culture with like a low risk, high impact move, whether it be a
to gain trust.
Strategic plan. Yeah. Like, we're going to update our strategic plan, and we're going to do it differently this time, and we're going to do it together, and feels different. And then they move the culture with a higher risk, higher impact. It might be a reorganization that comes out of the strategic plan. And then they deliver the results, and things are different, and everybody's like, oh yeah, this is great. Okay. It's different. And then it achieves some momentum, and everybody's kind of ready for what next. Well, if you did each one of those on a 1-year cycle, there's your 5-year marker. And I think then you have to almost resurface the culture and reassess, where is the culture?
Have you
and
done
what's
that? Do you know that you've done that several times?
And this is, you mentioned AI earlier, and I wrote a little small opinion piece in the AACC journal this summer, where I used ChatGPT. I think it was called Leveraging AI to Unlock Leadership Reflections. So I was driving back from a meeting in Albany. It's an 1.5-hour drive, just straight away on the thruway. And I sang the whole way and on there and did my own carpool karaoke solo, if you will.
You sang?
Oh no!
Yeah, okay.
Only in the car, only by myself.
Fair.
And of course, listened to part of an EdUp podcast, of course, no
You're
question.
Too kind, sir.
I'm just saying. And on the way back, I was thinking, I'm not up for any of that. I just got thinking about my time and I always say I'm in my third presidency. It just happens to be at the same institution. Funny, haha. But what do I mean by that? So I turned on voice activation with ChatGPT and said, ask me question, gave it that context, and then said, ask me questions about my leadership and how it's evolved over these 18 years. And it was a 45-minute conversation.
That's interesting.
Because it just kept asking me questions until I told it to stop. And I found that those, for me, it was kind of my first 7 years is how I kind of categorized. Because for me, I believe a real tipping point was 2014 when we joined Achieving the Dream and got really serious about student success and started looking at our data differently using ATD supports. And then that kind of ran up into the pandemic, where we did a full run of guided pathways, full scale of adoption, 13 design teams, 230 recommendations, completely transformed the student learning experience and increased our graduation rate by 50%. And
let's go.
And here we go. Exactly. And then it came out of the pandemic. And if you were to ask me, like, what's the next climb? Because I feel we had reaced momentum for the second time.
I wasn't going to ask you that, but Randy, what is the next climb?
Yeah,
it's a good darn question.
So I'll tell you how I got there. Coming out of the pandemic, I don't know that I had that answer. So I approached my board, asked them if I could get an executive coach for myself. I have my own clients, but thought to myself, by coaching others, I started thinking I could use my own coach on this, and got an amazing coach. And that led to open the door for me to join the first cohort of the Aspen Fellowship for Experienced Presidents. Went through that. And on the other side of those two experiences, and on also the national landscape was changing in these last 2 or 3 years, to really focus on what the Aspen Institute calls community colleges 3.0. 1.0 being access, 2.0 access and completion, 3.0 postgraduate outcomes. Yep. And then last year you watched the Carnegie classifications go from 6 classifications to 30 plus or something. And postgraduate outcomes is one of the metrics community colleges will be judged on. Well, it's really hard to move a culture toward postgraduate outcomes when they're like, hey, man, our job's to get them across the stage. How can we impact postgraduate outcomes? And we joined. We were invited to join the Achieving the Dream Community Vibrancy cohort, their second one, and learn a deeper dive about that. Actually, kind of means community vibrancy, the way they think about it at Achieving the Dream. That the more you can increase postgraduate outcomes, the more successful they're going to be and contribute to a more vibrant community through gainful, family sustaining wages. There's a lot to it. It's definitely going to be a plenty big climb. So that, gets you through the door every day.
Well, you brought up a couple of things I want to hit on because the examples are like, yes, I give these examples. And then just to hear you do it on your own and get there. We talk about the use of artificial intelligence. And first of all, I've gotten to the point where I hear enough of these and you have to encapsulate them differently. There's AI for teaching and learning. There's artificial intelligence for business operations. And there's AI for propelling, catalyst sort of achieving business operations, right? Like, how do I catalyze myself, my own leadership by the tools that I use? And the range, when I talk about university presidents and their use of AI, it ranges from ChatGPT or Claude and not knowing what I'm going to put in as my password, and I'm afraid I'm going to not remember it, so I shouldn't input it, to really all the way down the line to really, good prompt engineering and so on. To hear you do that and say, hey, look, I'm going to use artificial intelligence as a thought partner to evaluate my leadership over this course of time and give me feedback, or ask me questions and give me feedback based on the information I'm putting, and then maybe perhaps give me unadulterated feedback, just like gratuitous level, feedback, positive or negative, and maybe open my eyes a little bit. But that's incredible self-awareness to do something like that. And then to also then go get a human you think about the connections here, right? Like, I've AI, I've engineered it to be a thought partner. I'm going to have it evaluate my leadership. And then for you to also later, or even if it's before, get to a point where you go, wait a minute, I also need a human coach. I've been doing this for 19 years or however many. I know the job. Do I really need a coach? I know what I'm doing. There's 100 reasons why you wouldn't need to hire an executive coach. And you look at and you encapsulate all of that you went to the inhuman intelligence of AI and asked it to evaluate, and you ended up with a human.
But no, flip it.
Reverse it.
I could not have gotten to think about using AI in that way if I didn't have the human coach. Because
either way, it's incredible self-awareness. How do you get to that point? It's just experimentation at this point where you go, I just need as many inputs as I can get?
If you're afraid of success, this message isn't for you. Every year, higher ed talks about change. But Insights EDU 2026, it's the catalyst. The Modern Learner Report drops here first, revealing how learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. Spoiler, most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. Over 65 powerhouse speakers. Real strategy, real data. Only built for leaders ready to own their transformation. Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. Support the EdUp experience for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life. You'll get ad-free early access to episodes. But hurry, price goes up after December 31st, 2025. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and click support the show.
There's definitely an element of productive paranoia of, that imposter syndrome wasn't too far shed, even as president many years ago. But the idea of having the executive coach that I did, doing the inner work of reflecting, gave me a great book called Art and Fear. It's a short book, and challenged me to read it by substituting art with leadership and artist with leader. It was the most amazing read, but like reading two books, and
interesting.
And like, how do you make good art? How do you make good leadership? And it's that level of inner work that then prompted me. I don't know that I would have thought I'm going to access ChatGPT and say, ask me. And the other part is training myself up in AI. I did in spring of 24, took a Coursera prompt engineering class, want to get out in front of it. How can I have any moral high ground to talk about AI to the faculty and staff here if I'm not training myself? So I was a certified prompt engineer for 3 months, looking at those salaries and and then ChatGPT 4, I think, came out in June of 24. And you could just say, could you please write the prompt for me?
Went away real fast.
Exactly. So I was already out of date. But then I met Todd McLeese at humanskills.ai and through our Strategic Horizon network, and had him speak to the network. And he and his team at Human Skills AI have created an AI agility challenge. They have an amazing AI agility framework, and it's a 30-day challenge, even though you get access for 90 days. But the idea of 15 minutes a day, working with AI in a structured way. You watch the video, you read the key points, and then they give you 1 or 2 seed prompts to work with the LLM of your choice. And you do that 15 minutes a day for 30 days, or as I like to say, 75 minutes every Sunday morning. And you come out the other side with a deep sense of human agency of how to maintain your sense of agency in engaging AI in ways that it's going to make you better. It's not about making your job easier, but about elevating your own effectiveness is really the outcome that I took away from that. And then now we're offering the AI Agility Challenge to our local community, starting with employers for the last 6 months. And then this past month, we opened it up as part of our community education offering. So that getting yourself trained up in AI and spending that time. My doctoral advisor at Michigan always said the best thing you can do for yourself is find a way to become a reflective practitioner, because too many leaders just lead the way they've always been led or were exposed to, and then they lead and just perpetuate the sins of the past. And but if you're a reflective practitioner, you're constantly reflecting on your own practice.
I like that.
You know, what's interesting about AI, though, is that it gives us an opportunity. It might be forced for some, opportunity for others to think about how you lead in this world that will, how do we lead an institution in a world where artificial intelligence will be a part of it and not get sick and tired of hearing about AI? Because I will tell you, I do a lot of these conferences, and a lot of them, and you go in and you listen to somebody and they're talking about AI and ethical implications and sustainability. Get it? I'm like, but most people are trying to figure out how to be a user. So those are really high level conversations to have with a group of people that don't know which AI program they're going to use for what. Really important academic conversations for society. But when you can't even engineer your own prompt or don't have a framework for it, how do you even think about having that conversation? And so when I do my thing that I do on my keynotes is I make people bring a computer and we open up and we go through 4 to 6 tools. Like, here's what this one does. Here's how to use it with that one. It's adult Legos, right? It's like trying to put together these programs to come out with some output that you go in with an idea of what you want to create, and then have it be accomplished in the critical thinking that goes into that. And then how you take the idea of that and start to challenge the old academic model, which says complete this 8 to 10 page paper on X. And you go, well, AI could do that with the right amount of ingenuity and critical thinking. Is that really what I want to be worried about? Do I really want to worry about finding if the person used AI to sort of cheat on this paper, quote unquote cheat, when I know that it could be created that easily? Don't I want to move the learning to the front end and say, here, what programs did you use? What were the prompts, and how did you come up with those prompts? And what programs did you use together? Are you seeing this shift happen in the minds of people yet? The masses that work at MVCC and those around you. And are we there at teaching and learning yet?
Yeah. Great insights there. You've probably seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix and the AI Dilemma on YouTube from the Center for Humane Technology. And I love their analysis that, or their word of caution, that if social media was big tech's race to the bottom of the human brainstem, AI is the race for big tech with deep trust. So whichever LLM you choose, whichever tool, the more it knows about you, the more you have to trust that it's gonna turn out okay.
That's true.
And then as I talk to other presidents and try to explore this and think about the change model, the bell curve of change. And we've got our innovators and our early adopters. And I think a lot of us are kind of at the chasm trying to get to the early majority. It feels like I have an image that I've included in some of my keynotes in the last couple of months that it's like blacksmiths finishing a long, hard day at work, and the sun's setting and it's kind of dusty and whatnot. And then they get in their Model Ts and drive home. It's like at work, AI, I'd rather not have it here because I'm teaching my discipline. I'm trained in my discipline. I'm not trained to teach AI. And if the content is moving in that way in AI, I have to be so sophisticated in my tools and how I use AI. Because if they say it's, and I'll go home and I'll use AI to make me, even if not an LLM, my gosh, a simple search on Google or Perplexity is AI, it's happening. Leave alone what's been happening for years with AI in your marketing ads and all of those things. But the tools to teach AI in such a way, that's just a huge lift, I heard a professor in their 40s say, I really hope I retire before AI becomes a thing, it's kind of already here. And then
this is lunacy.
Yeah.
So
it's here in a big way.
Yeah, the empathy is there because you can, if they say one of the key skill sets for the future is to become a sophisticated editor, because the LLMs can generate so much text, but you have to be a sophisticated editor. Well, if I'm an English faculty, my instant response, and I've heard this from some of our English faculty, how can you become a good editor if you don't know how to write in the first place? Then the challenge is, how can we help students use AI to become good writers in the first place?
Yep.
And that's a huge lift for faculty, and it's a huge lift for colleges to support their faculty in getting there. And that's a whole part of, you can put it all on postgraduate outcomes as the next climb, but you can't ignore AI as a method to get there and how to really think deeply about that, which is why I call Todd McLeese and his AI agility framework and the training like my AI security blanket, that as long as I follow Todd on LinkedIn, have him connect to the college in various ways periodically, and me personally staying connected to him, it helps me be that much better of a leader. Because it's all changing so fast, and how do you stay on top of it? As he says, with AI, Todd says that it's not access to the technology like it used to be with computers, access because everybody can get AI apps on their phone or whatever. It's access to the right kind of training. And that's, I think, a big challenge for us.
And the right mindset, right? So we have to have the mindset to learn as experts in our discipline and our fields, to have our expertise questioned again in a various way, or how we get to some output of our expertise is very hard for people to take. And then you take the business world where you're serving, you're pumping out graduates that are going to go to work in your economy. And that local economy says, hey, we'd like these students to be able to use AI, at least in some base level. That's a tough spot for higher ed to be in, where we're questioning whether we should or shouldn't, and then the employers are going, oh yeah, we're embracing the heck out of this thing, we want students who can do it. As a president, that's a tough balance for you. What are you doing? How do you solve that?
Yeah, that's where, we started with their incumbent workers by going around and saying, what's your AI strategy? How are you training? We've got this partner with AI Agility, Human Skills at SUNY. We can offer this training here, but we haven't cracked the nut on how to, across the board, deliver AI training to our students at scale. It's not like, I remember I was a registrar in the mid-90s, and we actually had a class, Intro to the Internet, 3 credits in CIS. in our
You just made the
information
list.
science. And it doesn't feel like AI, an intro to AI as a required gen ed requirement. It makes sense on one level, but in a practical level, under the constraints of transfer agreements and what, it's not there. So don't have that answer yet, but it's definitely on my mind.
I think about that too with typing. Like my 8-year-old, my 8 and an almost 11-year-old, my 11-year-old in particular, I mean, she's typing fast, but it's like a hunt and peck, right? And I'm like, when do they teach you how to type? And she says, we don't have typing. And I thought to myself, boy, the minute you put a cell phone in this kid's hand, which for me is going to be many years before I get my daughter a cell phone, you don't even need to you don't need to know how to type. You could just sort of hit, and then I see her hit the speaker button on her computer, and she asks whatever AI app is built into the her educational suite, and asks it questions. And I thought you didn't even need to type. They're learning how to write. They're learning longhand and writing papers and stuff, but for typing it. And so these things are going away around us, are being reformed, and the model of higher education also has to be reformed. And you talked about outcomes, graduate outcomes, this next level where we're tracking the graduates beyond that first job for multiple jobs. We've seen short-term Pell come out or will come out next year from the federal government, and some of the hooks that are in that and placement. There's placement and outcomes and placement percentages that have to be met. How do you think about the industry moving to outcomes and what that means for what you offer internally? Is it making you rethink what you're offering, or offering more, offering less, offering different? Tell me about your product offerings.
Yeah, I'll go right to our free fast track model that we adapted from our friends at Lorain County Community College in Ohio. I don't think Marcia Ballinger's been on EdUp yet, but
Not yet.
Oh my God, you've got to get Marcia Ballinger on this. Oh, you'll have a blast. We've been in the Strategic Horizon Network together for over 20 years, and just incredible leader there. And they created a free fast track model coming to get people to work after the pandemic, and quickly retrained. Well, they were having that early success just as we were conducting community focus groups with inner city refugee populations and other underserved populations that we knew, given their life circumstances and family responsibilities, we needed to find ways to serve them better. So we did focus groups with a local communications agency that did some great work for us, the Page Group. And they came back and said, well, we asked everybody how could MVCC serve them better? And their summary report, and I'm very big summary here, was basically take everything you're doing and do the opposite. It needs to be short term, needs to be fast, needs to be free, needs to have wraparound supports, needs to have the skills to provide jobs, and a clear pathway for what the next job is and what the entire career is. And our staff had a meeting with got inspiration from Lorain, and we now braid 17 different funding streams. In New York, there's a lot of funding streams around workforce development. So we braid them. Everything's free. You just mvcc.edu/fast. Take your credit or take your class and put it in the shopping cart. And 20% of these classes are actually for credit, but they're on our free fast track page in a shopping cart. Intro to welding. You can get a job with just, TIG welding, MIG and TIG welding. We'll come back for another welding class, and then you move to another level job. And a teacher aide, you can become a teacher's aide in New York State in 24 hours of training. But it's $105 and a credit card to get fingerprinted. Well, not everybody's got $105 laying around. Not everybody has a credit card. And we do that training in a week. I have the school districts come in on the front end. Here's the pathway to become a school teacher. So you can move from a minimum wage retail job with no future to a teacher aide with a whole pathway to become a teacher assistant and then a teacher, and all the programming right here at the college. Hundreds have gone through that program. We've been doing 100 free fast track students a month since January of 2023 across manufacturing, healthcare, public service, human services, education, and more recently even bookkeeping, because we've got so many companies needing people in finance. Well, come take an intro to bookkeeping class. It's 4 credit, and some QuickBooks training. Everything's 14 weeks or less. And we've got a 65% completion rate, 60% adults, 25 and older, and 60% people of color.
Outstanding.
But our challenge is the outcomes. New York State does not have a robust student tracking system like at Texas or others. Difficult to access, unemployment insurance files, things like that. So my hope is that as the reporting agencies and accountability measures are more focused on outcomes, which of course as a taxpayer and even as a president, welcome that, because you can get better feedback when you know how they're doing after versus, they walked across the stage, must be good, or they completed the class, hope for the best. If we can get those data, we can weave that into our decision making and refine programs even faster.
I like that. Well, we want to bring you back for a quick subscriber-only episode, so I'm gonna ask you a little bit about the future of education in that bit. But before we let you go, I do want you to take an open mic. What else do you want to tell us about MVCC? No direction on that. Anything on your mind? Anything that you want to let the audience know? Anything you want to tell anybody? Opine for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I had the chance to share the free fast track stuff, which is really exciting, and talked about our guided pathways journey. But what we haven't talked about is we talked about the enormous sense of change that our entire sector and industry is undergoing. This is not a plug. This is more of a point. The only book I've ever written is called Competing on Culture, and I drew on, of course, some academic training in my doctoral program 25 years ago, but more so what I've learned here at MVCC. And for me, one of the things that guides me as a leader, as a community college president, is a quote by Broadway director Anne Bogart that I came across, and she said, "You cannot create results. You can only create the conditions in which something might happen."
Yeah.
And I love weaving that quote into keynotes and things. And this summer, I was doing a little virtual thing with a cabinet of a community college during their retreat, and I shared that quote. And then during the Q&A, one of the vice presidents said, "Yeah, that's a really interesting quote. Could you share what those conditions are?" And
I gotta love a good.
I was like, "Oh, geez, you actually want depth, that was." Yeah. But isn't the quote cool?
Yeah.
And so I gave that a lot of thought, and it's pieces, things like it goes to the Gallup findings on workplace and the Quantum Workplace annual employee surveys, and we're looking at, in the Strategic Horizon Network, we were looking at the multi-generational workforce, and they said, that's all interesting. Yes, they're all different. However, what they find in millions of workplace surveys, everybody wants the same across the generation. They want to do meaningful work with people they trust and respect. They want to feel recognized. They want an opportunity to learn and grow. And they want reasonable pay and flexibility for a job well done. And if you just lean into those principles and throw in some psychological safety and that recognition and professional development, and in a college environment, academia, if you can invest in your governance structure to build that trust, it's not just what you do. You know, student success breaks all ties. That's a student first culture, but it's a yes and. Have a culture first. How you go about serving students impacts your culture with every decision you make. So if you can be a culture first leader, you're going to find greater retention, greater satisfaction. And a real point of pride for me is in our annual climate survey. It's been very consistent that over 90% of our employees trust their colleagues, 98% connected to the mission, and 80% look forward to coming to work every day. Not just Tuesdays, but with everything everybody's got going, they look forward to coming, 80% look forward to coming to work every day.
Victory!
Pretty good stat. Well, Randy, thanks for being here. I'm going to bring you back shortly, but I do want to outro you in the appropriate way for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, he's your guest today. He's Dr. Randall Van Wagner. He is the president at Mohawk Valley Community College, and you've just EdUp'd.
Block out your calendar, bring your team, and lock in your spot, because Insights EDU early bird pricing ends December 15th. We'll see you in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. For 3 days, that will disrupt what you think you know about marketing and enrollment for today's modern learner. The EdUp experience has delivered over 1,000 episodes with higher ed leaders from around the world. Now you can support the show for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life when you join before December 31st, 2025. You'll enjoy ad-free early access to episodes. Go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and secure your lifetime rate today.